Welcome. Find yourself a comfortable position. Let your body settle. There is nowhere to be right now, nothing to do, and nothing to remember. All that exists for the next little while is a meadow. Let's go there together. Close your eyes and imagine you are standing at the very edge of an open field. The sky above you is wide and pale, the color of a morning that hasn't quite decided what kind of day it wants to be. Ahead of you, stretching as far as you can see, is a meadow. A meadow, by its simplest definition, is an open habitat, a place of grasses, wildflowers, and low-growing plants, largely free of trees. And yet within that simplicity lives one of the most quietly complex ecosystems on Earth. What looks like an ordinary field is, if you slow down enough to look, a whole world. You take a step forward. Beneath your feet, the ground gives just slightly. The roots of meadow grasses can reach down 2 feet or more into the soil, anchoring the land, holding moisture, threading the earth together in a net you cannot see but can feel beneath your weight. The air here is different, cleaner somehow, softer. There is a faint sweetness to it, the scent of warm grass and something floral carried on the breeze. This is partly because meadow plants release aromatic compounds called terpenes, the same family of molecules responsible for the smell of pine forests and fresh lavender. In a meadow in full bloom, the air is quietly alive with them. You walk a little further in. The grasses reach just above your ankles, brushing against you as you move. You notice the way they lean together in the breeze, all in one direction, like a slow and gentle wave crossing the field. This swaying motion isn't just beautiful, it actually serves the plant. The movement helps distribute pollen, shaking it loose into the air so it can drift toward other flowers. The meadow breathes and sways and quietly continues its ancient work. You pause and look down. Near your feet, almost hidden between the grass stems, is a cluster of small yellow flowers. They sit close to the ground, as though they know they do not need to shout to be noticed. Many meadow wildflowers grow low like this on purpose. Keeping a compact form helps them avoid being damaged by wind, and allows them to hold warmth closer to the soil, where the air stays a few degrees gentler even on cooler days. You breathe in again. You close your eyes for a moment, just standing here, letting the meadow exist around you. There is a soft hum nearby, a bee, navigating its way through the air with extraordinary precision. A single honeybee may visit up to 5,000 flowers in a single day. 5,000 small moments of landing, tasting, collecting, and departing. And yet each journey is purposeful, each flower remembered. The meadow and the bee have been partners in this work for tens of millions of years. The sun has shifted slightly. The light in the meadow is different now, warmer, more golden, casting long shadows from the grass stems, so that the field becomes a pattern of light and dark, like the surface of quietly moving water. Meadows are particularly sensitive to light. Many meadow plants are what botanists call heliotropic, meaning they slowly orient themselves toward the sun across the course of the day. If you were to watch one long enough, if you had hours in stillness and patience, you would see it turn, almost imperceptibly, following the light the way we follow warmth. You find a patch of grass that looks soft and inviting, and you sit down. The ground beneath you is warm from the afternoon sun. Around you, the meadow continues quietly, grasses moving, insects working, the occasional bird call drifting in from somewhere nearby. A thriving meadow can support over 150 species of invertebrate within a single acre. Beetles and butterflies and grasshoppers and spiders, each one part of a system so finely balanced that the absence of even one species can send a small ripple through the rest. But here, in this meadow, everything is as it should be. Everything is in its place. You lean back and look up at the sky. The clouds above you are slow and unhurried, drifting the way thoughts drift when you are finally truly at rest. Scientists who study sleep and relaxation have found that natural environments, particularly open, green spaces like meadows, trigger a measurable drop in cortisol, the body's primary stress hormone. Simply imagining being in a place like this, studies suggest, can begin that same gentle process. Your nervous system, in other words, knows where it is. It recognizes this place. It is already beginning to let go. So let it. Let the meadow hold you for a while. There is nothing here that needs your attention. Nothing that asks anything of you. Only the grass and the light and the slow warm hum of a world that has been here long before you and will be here long after, quietly blooming, quietly resting, quietly at peace. Stay here a little longer. We have only just arrived. While resting in the warm grass, the sky above you is open and unhurried. Your breathing has slowed a little. The weight of the day has begun, very gently, to lift. The afternoon light is shifting. It does that in meadows. It moves differently than it does in cities or rooms, where walls and corners interrupt it. Here the light arrives whole. It lands on everything at once. Ahead of you, a cluster of tall purple flowers are standing above the grass line, their petals catching the sun. Flowering plants in meadows are not placed at random. Over thousands of years, different species have developed what ecologists call niche partitioning. Each plant has quietly carved out its own space in terms of height, flowering time, and root depth, so that dozens of species can share the same small patch of ground without truly competing. The tall purple flowers blooming are simply occupying the space that is theirs. Everything here has found its place. Grasshoppers are among the oldest insects on Earth. Fossil records show they have existed largely unchanged for over 250 million years. They were singing in meadows long before there were human ears to hear them. The sound you might hear on a warm afternoon, that soft rhythmic chirping, is produced not by the throat, but by the legs, a rapid rasping of the hind leg against the wing, a song made from the body itself. You close your eyes again. Without sight, the meadow becomes something else, a place of sound and warmth and the faint pressure of the breeze against your skin. You listen. There is more here than you first noticed. A low, continuous hum. The whisper of grasses. Somewhere water. Many meadows exist in proximity to water sources, streams, marshes, the edges of rivers. The moisture that evaporates from nearby water is drawn across the meadow in invisible currents, keeping the air just slightly cooler and more humid than the surrounding land. It is one of the reasons meadows feel, on a warm day, like a breath of relief. You find yourself thinking of nothing in particular, just the meadow, just the light behind your closed eyelids, warm and amber, just the ground beneath you, patient and still. Meadow soil is remarkably alive. A single teaspoon of healthy meadow soil contains more microorganisms than there are people on Earth. Bacteria, fungi, protozoa, nematodes, all of them going about their invisible work. Beneath the peaceful surface of this field, an entire civilization is quietly thriving. Meadows are important carbon sinks. The dense, deep root systems of perennial grasses store significant amounts of carbon in the soil. In some cases, meadows are more effective at long-term carbon storage than forests, because the carbon in meadow roots is buried underground and less likely to be released. Every breath of fresh air in a meadow is partly the gift of everything growing beneath your feet. A cloud passes slowly across the sun. The light dims for a moment, not to darkness, but to the softer gray gold of diffused afternoon sky. In the brief shade, the colors of the meadow shift. Greens deepen. The flowers seem to glow a little more quietly. Then the cloud passes, and the warmth returns, settling back over the field like a blanket. Many meadow flowers open and close in response to light and temperature, a behavior called nyctinasty. Daisies, for instance, close their petals in the evening and reopen them each morning. The meadow, in this way, keeps its own kind of time. It has its own rhythms, its own slow daily pulse, as regular and unhurried as breath. The breeze picks up slightly, and you feel it move across your face like something gentle and unhurried. The grasses around you respond, leaning together, whispering. Wind is one of the primary architects of a meadow's shape. Areas that receive consistent wind develop lower, more compact plant communities, while sheltered corners allow taller species to flourish. Walk across any large meadow, and you are walking through a landscape quietly sculpted by decades of invisible force. Every plant in its place partly because of the particular way the wind has always moved through this particular place. You open your eyes again. The sky above you is still wide and pale and generous. A bird, small, swift, and silent, arcs across it in a long, lazy curve and disappears beyond the tree line at the meadow's edge. The edges of meadows, where open grass meets woodland or hedgerow, are among the most biodiverse zones in any temperate landscape. Ecologists call these transition zones ecotones. Species from both habitats overlap here, and often the ecotone itself supports species found nowhere else. Creatures and plants that need exactly this combination of open light and sheltered cover. The boundary of the meadow is not an ending. It is, in many ways, the richest place of all. You let your gaze drift back to the center of the field, to the grasses and flowers and the slow golden light, to the particular quality of stillness that only open places have, not empty stillness, but full stillness, alive with small things, warm with the accumulated heat of the afternoon. Researchers studying the psychological effects of nature have found that open landscapes, meadows, plains, gentle hills, tend to produce what they describe as involuntary attention. Unlike the sharp, deliberate focus required by screens and tasks, the meadow asks nothing of your concentration. It simply receives you. Your mind, given nothing to solve, begins to wander in the best way. Thoughts begin to slow. The edges of things soften. Your body remembers how to rest. Notice that you are here, in this field, in this light, with the grass and the insects and the slow warm turning of the afternoon, and that there is nowhere else you need to be. Just here, breathing slow and calm. The afternoon has deepened around you. The light is a little lower now, and a little more golden. The grasses glow at their tips. The flowers hold the warmth of the day inside their petals like a secret. You watch a butterfly drift past, seemingly directionless, as though the air itself is guiding it rather than any intention of its own. Butterflies navigate using a combination of the sun's position and an internal circadian clock, a biological timekeeper built into their cells that keeps running even when the sky is overcast and the sun is hidden. They always know more or less where they are. They always know more or less which way is home. There is something quietly reassuring about that. The butterfly settles on a flower near your hand. You hold very still. It opens and closes its wings once, twice, as though breathing, and then lifts away again into the warm air. The powder you sometimes see on your fingers after handling a butterfly wing is not actually dust. It is made up of tiny scales, modified hairs, each one almost impossibly small, that give the wing both its color and its aerodynamic properties. A single butterfly wing can carry thousands of these scales, arranged in overlapping rows like the tiles of a very small and very beautiful roof. You settle back further into the grass. Lying in long grass has a measurable effect on the nervous system. The combination of physical support from the ground, visual softening from the surrounding plants, and the subtle acoustic dampening of tall vegetation, together, create conditions that neurologists associate with deep relaxation. Your body, in other words, was made for exactly this. For lying in fields. For doing nothing in particular under an open sky. Somewhere nearby, a skylark is singing. You can hear it but not see it. The song arrives from somewhere high above. The skylark is famous for its song flights, during which it ascends almost vertically to heights of up to 300 meters, singing continuously the entire way up and only falling silent as it descends. A single song flight can last several minutes without pause. The skylark sings as it rises, as though the climbing itself is what makes the music possible. The song fades eventually into the distance. You are present and warm and unhurried. This state, quiet wakefulness tipping towards sleep, in which the mind releases deliberate thought, but has not yet crossed into dreaming, is known in sleep science as hypnagogia. It is the soft doorway between one state and another. In this place, the mind sometimes produces images, sensations, fleeting impressions that feel both entirely strange and entirely familiar. A meadow is a very good place to find this doorway. The grass beside you stirs. A small mouse appears at the base of a stem, freezes for one precise moment, and then disappears again into the undergrowth. Meadow mice and voles create elaborate tunnel systems through the base of long grass, just above the soil line, hidden highways that remain invisible from above, sheltered from predators by the canopy of stems overhead. An entire community of small animals moves through these tunnels all day and all night, busy and purposeful, in a world that exists just below the level of ordinary human attention. The light is shifting again. The shadows of the grass stems are longer now, stretching across the ground in thin parallel lines, pointing east. The day is beginning its slow, unhurried turn toward evening. As the sun descends toward the horizon, the quality of light in an open meadow changes in ways that painters and photographers have long tried to capture. The angle of the light lengthens shadows, saturates colors, and gives every surface a warm, luminous quality. This is the hour often called the golden hour, though in a meadow, it feels less like an hour and more like a gift. Something the day offers quietly before it goes, to anyone still paying attention. You are still paying attention. Just barely. The boundary between waking and sleep is very close now. You can feel it the way you can feel the edge of warmth from a fire, not sharp but present, a gentle gradient from one thing into another. Dew forms in meadows earlier than almost anywhere else. As the sun sets and the air cools, the temperature of the grass drops faster than the surrounding air, and moisture condenses on the blades and petals in tiny droplets that will, by morning, make the whole field glitter. The meadow prepares itself for night in its own quiet way, cooling, condensing, settling. Exactly as you are settling now. The meadow is very still. The light is golden low. There is nothing left to do today. Nothing at all. The meadow has moved into evening. The sky above you has shifted from pale gold to something deeper, a blue that is not quite blue, not quite purple, the color that exists only in this particular hour between day and night. The first star has appeared, though you might not have noticed it yet. It is always there before you see it. Meadows have been used as astronomical observing sites for thousands of years. Their openness, no trees, no hills, no walls, gives an unobstructed view of the entire sky from horizon to horizon. Ancient peoples oriented stone circles and earthworks to align with sunrise and sunset over open grassland, using the meadow itself as a kind of calendar. The meadow has always been a place where humans looked up and tried to understand their place in something larger. The air has cooled noticeably now. You can feel it on your face, a gentle freshness, while the ground beneath you still holds the warmth it gathered through the day. This difference, warm ground, cool air, creates what meteorologists call a temperature inversion in the lowest layer of the atmosphere, just above a meadow at dusk. Mist often forms in these conditions, rising in thin wisps from the grass, drifting in slow curling shapes just above the surface of the field. If you were to stand at the edge of the meadow now and look across it, you might see the mist beginning, pale and soft and barely there, like the meadow breathing out. The sounds are changing too. The daytime insects have grown quieter. The birds have mostly stilled. And into that quieting, new sounds are appearing. The first tentative chirps of the evening crickets, the distant low call of something further away in the trees. Many meadow insects are crepuscular, meaning they are most active at twilight, the hour of transition between day and night. Moths begin their flights. Certain beetles emerge from the soil. The meadow does not go to sleep at nightfall. It simply changes shift. A new community of creatures takes over, moving through the same grasses, visiting the same flowers, continuing the same ancient work by different light. A moth drifts past you, pale and slow and soft, its wings barely visible in the fading light, navigating by some sense you do not have toward some flower you cannot see. Moths are extraordinarily important pollinators, responsible for the pollination of many plants that bloom or remain open in the evening, pale flowers especially, which have evolved to be visible in low light. Some meadow plants rely almost entirely on moths for their pollination, having developed scents that are strongest at night when their moth partners are flying. The meadow's nighttime story is told in fragrance as much as in light. You breathe in and notice it, something floral, something sweet, drifting on the cool air. Stronger than it was an hour ago. Richer. Some flower nearby is opening itself more fully to the evening, offering everything it has to the dark. The meadow clary, the white campion, the evening primrose. Many meadow wildflowers intensify their scent at dusk, releasing greater concentrations of aromatic compounds as the temperature drops. The chemistry of a meadow at night is entirely different from its chemistry at noon. It is a place that saves some of its best things for the dark. The light is nearly gone now. The sky above you holds the last pale memory of the sun somewhere far below the horizon, a faint luminous band in the west that makes the rest of the sky look deeper by contrast. The stars are more visible now. Not just one, but several, and then more, appearing in ones and twos as your eyes adjust and the sky reveals itself, gradually and generously, the way it always has. On a clear night, a meadow far from city lights can offer one of the best views of the night sky available to a person standing on the surface of the earth. With no canopy overhead, no nearby buildings or streetlights to scatter and dim the starlight, the full dome of the sky is visible from the grass to the zenith and all the way down to the other horizon. People have been lying in fields looking up at these same stars for as long as there have been people. You are part of a very long and very quiet tradition. Lying in a field at night, letting the eyes go soft against the sky, is one of the oldest forms of rest there is. You lie still. The meadow lies still with you. The grass has stopped moving entirely, the air has gone completely calm, and there is a quality to the silence now that is different from quiet. It is the particular silence of a world that has finished its day and is resting without apology. Meadows at night provide shelter and warmth for a surprising number of creatures. Hedgehogs, field voles, and harvest mice nestle into the base of long grass to sleep. Many butterfly and moth species rest motionless on grass stems or flower heads through the hours of darkness, wings folded, waiting for the light to return. The meadow at night is full of sleeping things. You are in good company. The harvest mouse, one of the smallest mammals in the world, weighing no more than a few grams, builds its nest by weaving living grass stems together into a tight round ball, suspended above the ground, invisible from below. Inside this tiny woven sphere, no bigger than a tennis ball, the harvest mouse sleeps and raises its young, held above the earth in a cradle of living grass, rocked very gently by any breeze that passes through. There may be one nearby right now, sleeping in its grass nest in the dark, perfectly warm, perfectly safe, perfectly still. The night is very deep now. The stars above the meadow are at their brightest, the sky fully dark. The field around you is silver in shadow, the grass is pale where the moonlight catches them, dark in the spaces between. Everything is still. Everything is breathing slowly. And so are you. The moon, if it is up tonight, casts enough light in an open meadow to read by. Not comfortably, but enough. Moonlight is simply reflected sunlight, arriving at the Earth's surface at roughly 400,000 times less intensity than direct sun. And yet in an open field with no competing light, the human eye adapts to it with remarkable ease. The meadow at night under a full moon is not dark in the way a room is dark. It is silver. It is soft. It is a different kind of visible. You let your eyes close. There is nothing left to see that requires open eyes. The meadow is doing what it does without your attention. It has been doing so for a very long time. Many meadows in the British Isles and across Europe have existed continuously for over 1,000 years. Ancient grasslands that have never been plowed, never been built upon, their soil undisturbed for so long that it has developed a complexity that cannot be recreated once it is lost. These ancient meadows are sometimes called unimproved grasslands, a quietly ironic term for places that are extraordinary precisely because nothing has ever been done to them. They are the product of time and patience and being left alone. Ancient meadows support far greater biodiversity than recently established grasslands, sometimes hundreds more plant and invertebrate species. The soil itself holds the record of everything that has ever grown there, seeds lying dormant for decades, waiting for conditions that may or may not return. In a single ancient meadow, there are plants that have not flowered in 50 years but are still present, patient, underground, holding their time. The seeds of some meadow plants can remain viable in the soil for extraordinary lengths of time. The seeds of the great mullein have been recorded germinating after lying dormant in the soil for over 100 years. There are meadow seed banks in the ground beneath you that are older than anyone alive, quietly waiting, patient beyond anything we can properly imagine. The temperature of a meadow at night can drop significantly lower than the surrounding landscape, a phenomenon called radiative cooling. With no tree canopy to trap the warmth radiated by the earth, open fields release their heat upward into the sky more rapidly than woodland. The meadow gives its warmth away generously at night, and receives it again, just as generously, with the return of the sun each morning. An owl calls from somewhere at the meadow's edge. A single soft note, then silence. Then, after a long pause, another, a little further away now, moving through the darkness with a purpose you cannot follow. Barn owls hunt meadows almost exclusively, quartering back and forth across open grassland in a low, wavering flight, listening for the sounds of voles and mice moving through the grass below. Their hearing is among the most precise of any animal on earth. Asymmetrically placed ears allow them to pinpoint the exact location of a sound in 3 dimensions, in total darkness, without ever seeing their quarry. The meadow at night is read by the owl as a map of sound. Researchers studying meadow soundscapes have found that natural acoustic environments, even very quiet ones, have a measurable effect on the human body during sleep. The irregular, unpatterned sounds of a natural environment, unlike the regular rhythms of mechanical noise, do not trigger the brain's alerting response. The body learns quickly that these sounds are safe, that nothing is coming, that everything is exactly as it should be. Meadows are remarkably resilient ecosystems. After drought, flood, or fire, many meadow plant communities can recover fully within a single growing season, regrowing from dormant root systems that remained untouched underground. The part of the meadow that survives every disruption is the part you cannot see. The roots, the seeds, the fungi, the soil. The deep, patient, invisible part. The deep, patient, invisible part. You think about your own depths, the parts of you that keep going quietly regardless of what the surface is doing. The breath that continues without instruction. The heart that beats without asking. The systems working steadily in the dark of your body, patient and exact and entirely trustworthy, the way the meadow's underground systems are trustworthy. During sleep, the human brain undergoes a remarkable process of restoration. Cerebrospinal fluid pulses through the brain in slow waves, clearing metabolic waste products that accumulate during waking hours, a kind of nightly cleansing, a reset. The sleeping brain is not idle. It is doing some of its most important work. Like the meadow at night, like the roots in the dark earth, the deepest work happens in the quiet, in the stillness, in the letting go. The night has reached its deepest hour, that still point somewhere between midnight and dawn when the world seems to hold its breath. The stars are at their highest arc. The mist along the grass is settled and quiet. Nothing is moving. Nothing needs to. This hour has a name. In Old English it was sometimes called the dead of night, not because anything is absent, but because everything is so completely, so perfectly at rest. Studies of human sleep patterns before the widespread use of artificial light suggest that people historically slept in two distinct phases, with a quiet, wakeful period of an hour or so between them, a time used for reflection, gentle conversation, or simply lying still in the dark. This interval was called the watch, or the first waking. The meadow has always known about this hour. It keeps its own kind of watch, patient and unhurried, until the light returns. The grass is wet now with dew. If you reached out and touched a blade near you, your fingers would come away cold and damp, beaded with water that was not there an hour ago. Dew does not fall. It forms in place, condensing directly onto the surfaces of plants as they cool through the night. Each tiny droplet is a small act of physics. Water vapor in the air reaching its dew point on the cool surface of a grass blade and becoming liquid, clinging there until the morning sun evaporates it back into the air again. The same water cycling, the same meadow cycling, the same quiet physics every night for as long as meadows have existed. Everything cycles. You feel that here more easily than you do in other places. The breath cycling through your body. The seasons cycling through the meadow. The water cycling from soil to air to dew and back to soil again. The water held in a single acre of meadow vegetation and soil can amount to hundreds of thousands of liters, a vast, invisible reservoir. Meadows act as natural sponges, absorbing rainfall slowly and releasing it gradually, regulating the flow of water through the landscape the way a sleeping body regulates its own temperature, steadily, quietly, without effort. Without effort. You let that land somewhere soft inside you. The meadow does not try to do what it does. It simply does it. The roots do not decide to grow. The flowers do not choose to open. The dew does not intend to form. Everything happens because it is the nature of things to happen this way, in this order, in this rhythm. Circadian rhythms, the internal biological clocks that govern the daily cycles of living things, have been found in virtually every organism studied, from single-celled bacteria to blue whales. Meadow plants open and close on internal schedules, so precise that the Swedish botanist Carl Linnaeus proposed a flower clock in the 18th century, a garden planted with species whose opening and closing times would tell the hour of the day. The meadow has always known what time it is. Somewhere across the meadow, barely audible, a fox moves through the grass. Red foxes are among the most adaptable mammals on Earth, found on every continent except Antarctica, in habitats ranging from Arctic tundra to urban centers. But meadows are among their preferred hunting grounds, open enough to see across, rich enough in small mammals to make the journey worthwhile. The fox in the meadow at night is an ancient pairing. It has been happening, in fields very much like this one, for hundreds of thousands of years. The fox passes and is gone. The grass closes behind it. Grasses are among the most successful plant families in the history of life on Earth. They first appeared around 66 million years ago, around the time of the extinction event that ended the dinosaurs, and have since spread to cover approximately 40% of the Earth's land surface. They grow on every continent, in every climate zone from equator to subarctic. They are the ground beneath our feet in more ways than one. We built our civilizations on grass, wheat, rice, maize, barley, oats. All grasses. The meadow beneath you is part of the most successful family of plants the world has ever produced. There is a concept in Japanese culture called Shinrin-yoku, forest bathing, the practice of spending quiet, unhurried time in natural environments for the benefit of physical and mental health. The research behind it is substantial. Time in nature reduces blood pressure, lowers heart rate, decreases levels of stress hormones, and improves mood and cognitive function. A meadow offers all of this, perhaps even more generously than a forest, because the sky is open above it and the air moves freely through it, and there is nothing between you and the full, honest, unhurried fact of the natural world. The full, honest, unhurried fact of the natural world. The grass, the dew, the dark, the stars, the fox that came and went, the owl whose call you heard an hour ago and have not heard since, the harvest mouse in its woven nest, the dormant seeds in the soil, the fungi threading silently between the roots. All of it here, all of it present, all of it continuing in its own quiet way without needing you to watch. A meadow does not require an audience. It has been performing this same quiet drama, flowering, seeding, dying back, regrowing, since long before there were eyes to see it. To simply exist, for a little while, inside something larger and older and more patient than yourself, is a gift. The stars have shifted very slightly since you last noticed them. They do this all night, tracing slow arcs across the sky as the earth turns beneath them, though it feels, from where you lie, as though it is the stars that are moving and you that are perfectly still. The earth rotates at roughly 1,000 miles per hour at the equator, a speed so constant and so smooth that we feel none of it. We are always moving, always turning, always mid-arc through a journey we cannot perceive. And yet here in the meadow, lying in the grass with the stars overhead, everything feels as still as it is possible for anything to feel. The stillness and the motion are both true at once. Both happening, both real, both real. You let your breathing slow another degree. There is no floor to how quiet things can become, no ceiling to how still. The quietest places on Earth are not man-made chambers or empty deserts. According to acoustic researchers, they are certain ancient forests and open natural landscapes in the pre-dawn hours, where the absence of wind, traffic, and human activity creates a baseline of sound so low that the ear begins to notice things it ordinarily cannot. The rustle of a single insect, the sound of your own heartbeat, the faint movement of air across the surface of a grass blade. In those moments, the world is not silent. It is simply honest about how quiet it has always been underneath. Plants do not sleep in the way animals do. but they do enter a state of reduced metabolic activity at night, conserving energy and reallocating resources to growth and repair. Some species actually grow faster in the dark than in the light. Cell elongation in many grasses and flowering plants peaks in the hours before dawn, meaning that the meadow you will see in the morning will be, by a small but measurable degree, taller than the one you arrived in this evening. The meadow is growing in the dark, quietly, incrementally. Meadow grasses can grow up to an inch in a single day during peak growing season, a rate so rapid it is almost possible to observe if you watch long enough and patiently enough. Each blade is driven upward by a process of continuous cell division at its base, a growth point so low to the ground that grazing animals cannot remove it. This is why grazed meadows recover so quickly. The engine of growth is always protected, always ready, always quietly continuing, always quietly continuing. The phrase arrives and settles somewhere deep and stays. You are lying in a place that knows how to continue, that has been continuing for a very long time. Some grassland ecosystems are among the oldest continuously living communities on Earth. The prairies of North America, the steppes of Central Asia, the chalk grasslands of England, these are not new places that happen to develop. They are ancient, layered, accumulated things, shaped by thousands of years of particular soils, particular climates, particular grazers, particular fires. They carry their history in every root and seed and fungal thread. They are, in a quiet way, libraries, storing everything that has ever happened to them in the only language they know. A small sound reaches you from very nearby, a faint, almost inaudible rustling at the base of the grass stems. Something small and warm and alive, going about its business in the dark with no awareness of you at all. The common shrew, one of the smallest mammals in the world, weighing less than 10 grams, must eat almost constantly to fuel its extraordinary metabolic rate, consuming the equivalent of its own body weight in insects and worms every day. Even in the depths of night, even in the coldest hours, the shrew is awake and hunting, moving through the grass roots with a focused urgency entirely unlike the stillness of everything around it. The shrew moves on. The rustling stills. The meadow resettles into its nighttime quiet, and you settle with it. Wildflower meadows were once the dominant landscape of lowland Britain and much of temperate Europe, vast, continuous seas of grass and color that stretched between forests and fens, home to millions of insects, birds, and small mammals. Since the mid-20th century, more than 97% of these meadows have been lost to agriculture and development. What remains are fragments, precious, irreplaceable islands of an older world, carefully tended by those who understand what was nearly lost. Each surviving meadow is a kind of miracle, each one worth lying in and breathing slowly and being grateful for. Worth being grateful for. You feel that gratitude now, softly and without effort, not for anything specific, not directed anywhere in particular, just a diffuse and gentle warmth that has something to do with being here, in this imagined field, in this quiet hour, held by a place that has been worth protecting for as long as there have been people who understood what a meadow was. The word meadow comes from the Old English medwy, a place where grass is cut for hay. But long before it was a working word, it was a feeling, an open place, a breathing place, a place at the edge of the village where children played and lovers walked and old people rested, and everyone, eventually, looked up at the sky and felt something loosen in them that had been held tight all day. The meadow has always been a place where you can let go. The night is at its far edge now, and yet, something in the quality of the air has shifted by a degree so small it could not be measured, only felt. The meadow feels it. You feel it too, perhaps, somewhere beneath the surface of sleep. There is a bird that knows this moment better than any other. You cannot hear it yet. It will not sing for another hour, perhaps more. The dawn chorus begins not at sunrise, but well before it, in the darkest part of the pre-dawn. Different species begin singing at different times, each triggered by a slightly different light threshold. The robin is typically among the first, beginning its song in near total darkness. The sequence is so consistent that ornithologists can tell the time of dawn from the order in which species begin. The meadow composes its morning in a particular order, the same order, every day. There is something deeply settling about that, about a world that keeps its promises so faithfully, that meets each morning the same. Many meadow plants are perennials, meaning they do not complete their life cycle in a single year, but return season after season from the same root system, sometimes for decades. A cowslip plant can live for 25 years or more, flowering in the same spot each spring, reliable as a kept promise. Some meadow orchid plants live for 50 years or longer, spending many of those years underground as dormant tubers, emerging only when conditions are exactly right. The meadow keeps returning. You feel the truth of that somewhere below thought, in the part of you that does not need persuading. The concept of phenology, the study of the timing of natural events, the dates when particular flowers bloom, particular birds arrive, particular insects emerge, has been recorded by careful observers for centuries. Some English parishes kept phenological records stretching back hundreds of years, noting the first cuckoo call of spring, the first meadow buttercup, the first swallow over the open fields. These records show that meadow life follows rhythms so consistent they amount to a kind of natural calendar, one written not in numbers but in the opening of flowers and the return of birds, in the particular smell of warm grass on the first truly hot day of summer. The scent of freshly cut or bruised grass comes primarily from a group of compounds called green leaf volatiles, chemical signals that plants release when their tissue is damaged, originally evolved as a distress signal to neighboring plants and as a deterrent to herbivores. Over millions of years of human evolution in grassland environments, this scent became associated with safety, abundance, and open space. It is one of the most universally recognized and positively received smells in the world. Evolutionary biologists have proposed that human beings have an innate affinity for open savanna-like landscapes, gently rolling, grassy, with scattered trees and access to water, because this was the environment in which our species spent the majority of its evolutionary history. This preference, called the savanna hypothesis, may explain why people across cultures consistently rate images of meadow-like landscapes as among the most calming and appealing environments they can imagine. We are drawn to these places because we were shaped by them. The meadow feels like home because, in the oldest and most literal sense, it is. The color green, the dominant color of a meadow in full growth, has been shown in numerous studies to reduce psychological stress and promote a sense of calm and well-being. Exposure to green environments, even briefly, even in images, activates restorative processes in the brain associated with recovery from mental fatigue. The brain responds to green the way a thirsty person responds to water, with relief, with a letting go of something held too long. The phenomenon of stars fading at dawn is caused not by the stars themselves changing, but by the Earth's atmosphere beginning to scatter the first light from below the horizon, a process called astronomical twilight, which begins roughly 90 minutes before sunrise. Some of the most important transitions in nature happen in exactly this threshold hour, the hour before dawn. Nocturnal animals return to their resting places. Diurnal animals begin to stir. The chemistry of the air shifts as photosynthesis is about to resume. Dew reaches its maximum depth on the grass. Temperatures are at their lowest. The meadow is, in these minutes, at a precise balance point between the world it has been all night and the world it is about to become. Everything is poised. Everything is on the edge of its own beginning. The period of sleep known as slow-wave sleep, the deepest stage, the stage most associated with physical restoration and immune function, typically occurs in the first half of the night. REM sleep, associated with memory consolidation and emotional processing, becomes more dominant in the hours before waking. The night, in other words, is not uniform. It has its own structure, its own movement, its own passage from one kind of rest into another. Like the meadow moving through its hours of dark, each stage different, each stage necessary, each stage part of the same long, quiet, purposeful night. The darkness above the meadow has shifted its quality now. The faintest lightning at the eastern edge of the sky. Not yet color, not yet dawn, simply the first, faintest lessening of dark. This is the moment that meadow birds have been waiting for. Now, in response to this first ghost of light, a wren somewhere in the hedgerow begins to sing. The song thrush is one of the few birds known to repeat its own phrases, singing each short motif 2, 3, sometimes 4 times before moving on to the next, as though it wants to be sure you heard it. Its song above a dawn meadow is one of the most complex and varied of any British bird, a long, improvised sequence that is never quite the same twice, built from a personal repertoire of dozens of individual phrases, assembled freshly each morning. The meadow reassembles itself each morning too. The opening of a flower in the morning is driven not only by light, but by a small increase in temperature inside the petals themselves, warmth generated partly by the returning sun and partly by the metabolic activity of the flower. In some species, the interior of the flower is measurably warmer than the surrounding air, and this warmth serves as an attractant to early morning insects, offering them a warm landing place as the day begins. The flower opens itself like a small, generous fire. The light is growing now, not quickly but unmistakably. The sky to the east has shifted from black to a deep, velvety indigo. You can begin to make out, very faintly, the shapes of things, the mass of the hedgerow, the line where the meadow meets the sky, the individual stalks of the taller grasses, dark against slightly less dark. You are seeing the meadow as your distant ancestors saw it, in the ancient shape and movement and gradation, before color returns with the sun. Astronomers call the progression of pre-dawn light by 3 names: astronomical twilight, nautical twilight, and civil twilight, each defined by how far below the horizon the sun sits. Civil twilight, the final stage, is the point at which there is enough light to carry out most outdoor activities without artificial light. It is also, traditionally, the point at which the working day began for those who labored in fields, the meadow workers, the hay cutters, the shepherds who brought their flocks to open pasture with the first usable light. The meadow has been a place of human mourning for as long as there have been mornings to be in. Hay meadows, grasslands managed for the cutting of hay, have been central to human agriculture for at least 3,000 years. Before refrigeration, before imported fodder, the hay meadow was the means by which livestock survived winter. The cutting, drying, and storing of hay was among the most important events in the agricultural year, a moment of community effort, celebrated in art and song across every culture that depended on it. The meadow fed the animals that fed the people. It was, and in many places still is, the beating heart of a landscape. The sky is paler now, a true gray-blue, the stars gone from the east, a few still faintly visible overhead and in the west, holding on. The grass around you is visible now, silvered with dew, each blade catching the growing light and giving it back in a faint, generalized shimmer. The whole field seems to glow from within. This pre-dawn shimmer of a dew-covered meadow occurs because each water droplet on each grass blade acts as a tiny lens, refracting and reflecting the diffuse light of the sky. In some conditions, particularly on calm, clear mornings, this effect is dramatic enough that a dew-covered meadow appears lit from below, as though there is a source of light underneath the grass. It is entirely physics. It is entirely beautiful. Both things are true. The combined weight of all insects in a healthy meadow ecosystem is estimated to be greater than the combined weight of all the vertebrates, birds, mammals, reptiles, living in the same area. The visible world of the meadow, the world of birds and foxes and mice that we tend to notice, is a thin layer of visibility floating above an enormous invisible foundation of invertebrate life that makes everything else possible. The meadow is mostly made of things too small to see. Mostly made of things too small to see. The important structures always are. The roots, the fungi, the bacteria, the chemistry that holds cells together, the electrical signals moving through nerve fibers in the dark of a sleeping body, the quiet processes that keep you alive through the night without your awareness or your permission. You and the meadow have this in common. Both of you are mostly invisible to yourselves, mostly happening in the dark, mostly held together by processes so small and so constant that they can only be trusted, never watched. The total length of fungal mycelium, the thread-like root structures of fungi, in a single teaspoon of healthy meadow soil can exceed a kilometer. 1 kilometer of living thread in a teaspoon of earth. And across an entire meadow, this network extends for distances that are genuinely difficult to comprehend, connecting, communicating, redistributing, sustaining. All of it invisible. All of it essential. All of it quietly, continuously there. People walked out into open fields at dawn to receive the light on their faces, to stand in the dew-wet grass and feel the day begin. Not because anything dramatic happened at dawn, simply because the return of the light, over and over, without exception, across an entire human life, was something worth witnessing, worth being present for. Dawn. It arrived quietly, the way it always does. Suddenly the sky is unmistakably morning, and the meadow is unmistakably itself again. Green, dew-bright, alive with birdsong. You are still here, still lying in the grass, still held. The light on the meadow at this hour has a particular quality that painters have always loved and scientists have recently been able to explain. At sunrise, sunlight travels through a much thicker slice of atmosphere than it does at midday. This scatters the shorter blue wavelengths and allows the longer red, orange, and gold wavelengths through, which is why dawn light is warm and golden rather than the cooler white of midday. The meadow in early morning light is not just illuminated. It is selected. The light chooses what to show, and what it chooses every morning is the gold. You feel it even with your eyes closed, the warmth of it on your face, the way it arrives like a hand placed very gently against your cheek. Unhurried, certain, present. The warmth of morning sunlight on the skin triggers the production of serotonin in the brain, a neurotransmitter associated with mood, calm, and a sense of well-being. This is one of the reasons that morning light exposure is considered important for healthy sleep cycles. The serotonin produced by morning light is later converted, in darkness, into melatonin, the hormone that signals the body to sleep. The meadow at dawn is already preparing you for tonight's rest. The cycle begins again before the day has properly started. The flowering season of a well-managed wildflower meadow can span 8 months of the year, from the first snowdrops in late winter through to the last knapweed and devil's bit scabious of early autumn. There is almost no month in which something is not blooming, not offering itself, not participating in the slow and generous work of the field. The meadow finds a way to flower in almost every condition it is given. The meadow finds a way to flower in almost every condition. The common poppy, one of the most iconic of all meadow flowers, does not grow from a perennial root or a carefully tended seedling. It grows from seeds that can lie dormant in the soil for up to 100 years, waiting for the soil to be disturbed. When land that has been undisturbed for decades is finally turned, by plowing, by construction, by the digging of trenches, the poppies erupt almost overnight from seeds that have been waiting in the dark for longer than living memory. The poppy's great flowering is always a response to disturbance. Something broken open, and then something red and vivid and alive. The meadow around you is fully illuminated now, the flowers beginning to open, the birds at the height of their morning chorus. The dawn chorus at its peak, in a rich meadow and woodland edge habitat in late spring, can include the songs of 20 or more bird species singing simultaneously. To stand in a meadow at dawn in May and simply listen is to receive one of the most complex and beautiful acoustic experiences that nature produces anywhere on Earth. Researchers studying the effect of birdsong on human well-being have found that it consistently reduces anxiety, improves mood, and increases a sense of connection to the world. The birds are singing and the body hears it, and something in the body says, yes, this is right. Meadow flowers and their pollinators have co-evolved over millions of years into relationships of extraordinary precision. The shape of a flower's petals, the position of its nectar, the timing of its opening, all of these have been shaped by the specific bodies and behaviors of the insects that visit them. And the insects, in turn, have been shaped by the flowers. Each has become partly what it is because of the other. The meadow is full of these long, slow love stories, partnerships written in biology across timescales that make a human life look like a single afternoon. And yet here, in a single morning, you can see them playing out. The bee at the flower opening for the bee. A bumblebee drifts past you now, low and deliberate, its flight path a slow, purposeful arc toward the cluster of purple flowers a few meters away. Bumblebees are capable of flying in temperatures as low as 5 degrees Celsius, far colder than most insects can manage, because they are able to shiver their flight muscles to generate heat before takeoff, raising their body temperature to the level needed for flight. On a cool spring morning in a meadow, a bumblebee is the warmest thing moving through the cold air. It carries its own warmth with it. It makes its own conditions for going. Research into the neuroscience of awe, the feeling produced by encounters with things that are vast, complex, or deeply beautiful, has found that experiences of awe reduce the brain's default mode network activity, the neural circuitry associated with self-referential thought, rumination, and worry. The meadow, in its particular largeness and beauty, has been doing this for people for as long as people have existed, quieting the noise, making room for something simpler and more true. The sun is well above the horizon now. The meadow is in full morning light, warm and gold and humming with life. A study of people asked to describe moments of profound peace found that the most commonly cited settings were natural ones. The seashore, forests, mountains, and above all, open fields. Meadows and open grasslands appeared in these accounts more than any other environment. Not because anything dramatic happened in them, simply because of the quality of stillness they offered. The sky, the grass, the absence of walls, the sense of being inside something that goes on, unchanged and patient and quietly, inexhaustibly kind. We are nearly at the end of our time in this meadow. There is a particular light that meadows hold in the morning, not the gold of the first hour, but the slightly fuller, slightly higher light of mid-morning, when the dew has mostly gone and the flowers are fully open and the whole field is at its most complete. This is the hour that naturalists have long considered the best for meadow observation, the hour when insects are most active, flowers most open, and the whole community of the field is going about its work with maximum visibility. The great Victorian naturalist Gilbert White described spending entire mornings sitting motionless in open fields, simply watching, noting the arrivals and departures of insects, the small dramas of spiders and beetles, the particular way a particular patch of meadow organized itself around the sun. He considered these mornings among the best of his life. A butterfly drifts past at the level of the flower heads, moving in that unhurried, wind-assisted way that butterflies have, as though the idea of a destination is something they have considered and decided against. The painted lady butterfly makes one of the longest migrations of any insect on Earth, a multi-generational journey of up to 9,000 miles from sub-Saharan Africa to the Arctic Circle and back, with each individual completing only part of the route before the next generation continues. No single butterfly makes the whole journey, and yet the journey is completed every year reliably by creatures that weigh less than a gram and have no map and no memory of where they are going. They carry the direction in their cells. They know the way without knowing that they know. The meadow in summer is full of things that have been happening longer than humans have existed. Flowering plants, angiosperms, first appeared on Earth approximately 130 million years ago. The meadow as an ecosystem, in something like the form we would recognize, has existed for several million years. The particular partnership between flowers and pollinators, the whole intricate, interdependent world of the meadow, is older than the Himalayas, older than the separation of Europe from North America, older than almost any geographical feature we use to orient ourselves on the surface of the Earth. You are resting in one of the oldest living arrangements in the history of this planet. The meadow has been at this for a very long time. The slowest growing plants in meadow ecosystems are certain orchid species, which can take up to 16 years from germination to first flower, spending over a decade underground as a small, nondescript tuber before finally, in exactly the right conditions, sending up a flowering spike. 16 years of quiet, underground preparation for a single flowering. The meadow is very, very patient. It does not mistake preparation for absence. It knows that the most important growing often happens where nobody can see it. In the roots, in the dark, in the long, unhurried seasons of becoming that precede any visible flowering. You have been in your own kind of dark tonight, not a frightening dark, but a restoring one, a necessary one, a dark full of quiet work and slow repair, and the particular kind of becoming that only happens in stillness. The roots have been growing, the fungi have been threading, the seeds have been waiting, the dormant orchid tuber has moved imperceptibly through another of its 16 years of preparation. The harvest mouse has slept in its woven nest. The barn owl has returned to its roost. The butterflies and moths have rested on their grass stems, wings folded, waiting for the warmth. And now the sun is up, and the dew is lifting, and the bees are flying, and the whole field is open and alive and going about its morning with the same patient, undemonstrative devotion it brings to every morning, every season, every year. A single wildflower meadow in full bloom can produce enough nectar to support hundreds of thousands of bee visits per day. The meadow, in its peak season, is an engine of generosity, producing more than it keeps, offering more than it needs to, sustaining life far beyond its own boundaries through the movement of pollen and nectar and seed across the surrounding landscape. The meadow gives and gives and gives, and then it rests, and then it gives again. In the language of ecology, A meadow is described as a climax community, a stable, self-sustaining ecosystem that has reached a kind of equilibrium with its environment, no longer moving toward a different state, but maintaining itself in dynamic balance. Each year it flowers, each year it seeds, each year it dies back and renews. The meadow has found its form. It is complete and sufficient. There is a word used by ecologists and conservationists for the feeling produced by being in a wild or natural place of great beauty and complexity, a feeling that combines wonder, peace, belonging, and a sense of connection to something larger than oneself. The word is solastalgia when it refers to the grief of losing such a place. But the feeling itself, the positive version, the warmth of being present in an intact and living natural world, has no single word in English. You have been feeling it tonight, whether or not you had a name for it. In the grass and the dew, and the insects and the stars, and the slow return of the morning light. In the patient dark of the meadow at its deepest hour. In the simple, ancient, reliable fact of an open field under a wide sky, asking nothing, offering everything, continuing without interruption, without urgency, without end. Sleep now. The meadow is still here, and it will be here when you wake.